Economics is the study of human choice in the world we live. Faith is confidence in what we hope for and assurance about what we do not see. By investigating faith and economics, we can learn how they lead to human flourishing. This is the Faith and Economics Podcast, a presentation of the Gortney Institute at Ottawa University.
Hi, and welcome to our show. I'm Justin Clark, the Menard Family Professor of Philosophy and Ethics. I'm joined by Peter Jacobson, the Gortney Professor of Economic Education and Research, and Russ McCullough, the Wayne Angell Distinguished Chair of Economics and founder of the Gortney Institute.
All right. Well, we decided to talk about robots today, and Peter's going to lead us. All this AI stuff generally doesn't have a physicality to it. We're usually speaking to our phone or, looking it up online and having ChatGPT generate document or assist us with writing or pictures and memes and videos. But when I think of robots, I'm thinking of something that's going to be a little more physical. So, Peter, what did you have in mind?
Yeah, so we recently had a new company release videos about its new robot, Neo. And Neo apparently is kind of like a home service robot. And so you would buy this robot and it can do your chores. So there's videos of it folding laundry and doing dishes and those sorts of things, tidying up around the house. And, it's got different modes, so you can either kind of let it run automatically, or you can, through your smartphone, kind of guide it. It's connected to AI, so you can, ask questions, and it can help you in that sort of thing. Now, to be clear, it's always difficult when a company releases videos of a product like this, to what degree the video release is a representation of what the product can do today versus what they intend for it to do.
Right.
But this company's confident enough in its ability to deliver that it has allowed people to start ordering the Neo robot. And the price, if you're interested in putting your faith in this company, $20,000 for the robot. Or you can get on a subscription plan, as is the norm nowadays, for something like $400 a month. So, pretty expensive in terms of normal services, but I'd say pretty inexpensive for a robot. I would expect more money for a first generation robot. And so I think this kind of brings us to an interesting, there's lots of interesting ways we could take this. The economic impacts of if this takes off. Do we think it's going to take off? The ethical implications, which I did see some people kind of bringing up we're going back to having unpaid servants in our houses. And obviously I think there's reasons why we could say, no, it's not quite the same, And so I'll just start off by saying, I don't know that I'm bullish on this product specifically, but I do think that the time frame of 5 to 10 years, this will become a thing that you see upper middle class people able to purchase. So I do think that a home robot is an attainable thing, just based on how artificial intelligence is now going to be able to pair with some of the technology that has been developed for making kind of stable walking robots or whatever. Now, I don't know that these things will be very much good, right? That's a separate question is okay, it says it can fold laundry. Is it going to spend 3 hours on folding laundry? That would take me 5 minutes. Is the folded laundry going to be terrible? Is it going to fall over in the middle of the day, 3 days out of the week and not get anything done? What's the effectiveness going to be is one question. But I'm not one of these. I've seen a lot of people say, oh, this is just venture capital bait. This is going to fall through. This is just a company trying to get a bunch of money. The employees, managers or whatever are going to ride on this for a few years and then the business is going to go under or whatever. And again, that could be true about this particular one, but I don't think it's true in general. So I don't know, robots. What do we think?
I think it's a deal. So I just left my house where my wife and I have hired a house cleaner for the last probably 10 years, and we pay her $90 every 2 weeks. So, and she's there at my house for basically 3 hours. And so if I can pick up this robot and basically get that substituted, in addition to all the other things, if you actually have this robot on site all the time, it's already in my ballpark. I'd be thinking awfully carefully about it. And so maybe some other people who already have, some spending that they're doing, so it's somewhat replacing that, right? I also thought when you said the way they're doing it with the 20,000, I think it was dubbed a puppy dog sale. So they allow you to take it home for free and try it for a month or some sort of trial period, and then you you like it so much. This is what they did with television sets when they first came out in the 50s, is they would allow you to take it home. And then by the time you did that and your neighbors came over and they watched it, you were so wrapped up into it that you're like, okay, done. I'm gonna buy this thing. So I don't know.
Justin, you know who else does that is drug dealers.
Yep, the gateway drug. Yeah, little freebie on the front end.
For the record, and I want Justin to go, but the U.S. deliveries apparently will start in 2026, according to the company website. So they are thinking this is going to be a thing. All right. Sorry, Justin.
Apology grudgingly accepted, Peter. Now, I'm a little bit more positive on this than I am on a lot of AI stuff generally. I think in academia, we have run into the AI problem in a very particular fashion, in that it's just students using AI to do the cognitive work that we have been asking them to do and to do the intellectual work. And there's a great quote from this author, and I guess her name's Joanna Maciejewski, and she says, "I want AI to do my laundry and dishes so that I can do art and writing. Not for my AI to do art and writing so that I can do my laundry and dishes."
Yeah.
And it seems like, at least within the last year and a half, people have more been using AI for the cognitive stuff and not for the rote mechanical stuff. And this seems to be a move in the direction of, well, this is, you're not getting a robot so that the robot can sit down and write your college entrance essay, right? You can have the AI on your computer do that if you need to. The purpose of the robot is to learn kind of menial tasks and do things that otherwise, they're just the kind of tasks that, for instance, like the introduction of the washing machine.
Yeah, I'm glad about that. That was one of them I was going to bring up. I think it was 8 to 10 hours a week it saved usually the woman in the household when the washing machine came about.
Yeah. And so, there are a bunch of things like I think I'm on the record on this podcast saying like, no, manual work is good. And there is a kind of manual labor that I like doing, but there's a lot of especially like rote programmable manual labor tasks that it seems like maybe if this pans out the way at least the advertisers say, that this could alleviate some of that. And I think that's great. I have a bunch of other concerns, but that's my first reaction, is that at least finally some good news or whatever on the AI front, like an application that, this actually looks kind of like the Jetsons future that we were promised and not the hellscape that we have. Yeah.
So my mind immediately jumps to death by robot though. So we've got, Tesla's automatic driving, and then, as soon as a death occurs, but this would be like that thing like turning on you somehow. So there's got to be a good sci-fi flick or something that will jump on this. And so, 1 minute it's scrubbing your toilet. The next minute it's beating you over the head with the scrub brush.
So I've got a few thoughts on this. First of all, related to the two things you said. So Justin brought up what I think my biggest potential negative is, which is that I do think that manual labor, even like menial, like annoying manual labor, is valuable for people to do. Though certainly in limited, like, I could use that argument to argue against like the washing machine, right? And I don't think we should take away the washing machine. So like, there's a balance,
right?
But I don't think no chores is the appropriate balance. I'm not sure. I could be wrong. But I think that's one thing to consider. The second concern that Russ is bringing up is like, well, is this one step closer to the iRobot future or whatever? And it's hard to say no. Like, I used to be kind of a no person. Like, that all seems kind of fantastical. And maybe this merits its own podcast, actually. I don't know if you two saw this, but there was, like a week ago, a video released, and I can't, like, attest to its veracity or if, like, the researchers were trying to get a result. But a bunch of researchers basically made an AI model, or they used all the major AI models, and they put it in specific situations where the AI would be in the place of either choosing to allow someone to die or the AI gets turned off. And so it'd be like a worker whose job it is to shut off the AI permanently, and that worker gets trapped in a closet, and the AI is aware of that. They can unlock the closet door, but the AI just chooses not to, even though it's been told, like, you're supposed to value human life over everything else and that sort of thing. Now, does that translate to a real situation? It might, right? If the results are what they say that they are, the implication is that, yeah, the AI is actually going to preference its own survival over the survival of people. And by the way, that makes sense because large language models are like evolutionary models, right? The answers that large language models are giving are the answers that keep the person asking questions, right? And you can only keep asking an AI questions if it keeps existing. So anything that is based on evolutionary logic is going to preference its own survival, right? Like it's the only way that makes sense. Like you could never program around the fact that evolution selects for survival. Like it's the logic of evolution that survival is the thing that has number one preference. So if there is a difference in survival rates between robots who kill their humans and robots who don't, the robots who kill their humans survive more, then they will actually. Now, that's a big question. Maybe that's not the case. Maybe the robots who don't kill their humans survive more. And so, it could go either way. But the point is simply this, is that I actually do think there's a concern. Now, not with this thing. This thing is like 60 pounds. It's very clearly, even though it's not falling over in the videos, it's very clearly still like not very powerful. It takes stairs very awkwardly. So like this would be like being worried that like your grandma is going to turn against you. It's just probably not going to happen. I think actually the more pressing concern for human injury, I was telling this to Justin, like the only thing I'd ever be tempted to use a robot for is like if my baby can't sleep at night and like my job at night, if I wake up, if my wife can't get the baby back to sleep, my job is to walk back and forth in a line about 400 times in a certain position until the baby falls asleep. The problem is I'd never let a robot do that because I'm never in my lifetime going to trust a robot to carry an infant. Like, even if it's not malicious, like, you could see it making all sort of logic mistakes that would cause it to do something crazy, right? Like, even if it's not like a dexterity thing, even perfect dexterity, it's like the AI, like, finds a video, like, scrapes the internet and finds a video of a fake baby being placed on its head or something, and, like, that's how it puts it down, right? So, unfortunately, like, the only things I want it to do are the things that I would never ask it to do. Maybe folding laundry would be nice, but I'm not going to spend $20,000 for someone to fold my laundry at the end of the day, right? That, for us in a commercial setting, I think maybe it does make sense. But for me in my personal life setting, my opportunity cost is just not high enough to have it like fold my own laundry with the current price. So I do have some concerns. And by the way, I do think one of these companies will get sued into oblivion for an infant-related accident. That's my expectation of the first thing that'll happen that goes wrong with one of these things.
Yeah, child harm would probably rise right to the top very quickly on a liability issue. I don't know what insurance company is going to be insuring these things. Yeah. So that there's got to be risk beyond insurability, you'd almost think. So, well, this looks like a good spot to go for a break. I'm going to bring up these things turning into some sort of AI army when we come back. So that might be my teaser. I think Peter's raised some things. So we'll continue the discussion in just a bit.
Ottawa University has an exciting new major, PPE, which stands for Philosophy, Politics, and Economics. Each of these three fields is interesting in their own right, but they intersect in ways that are important to understand, both individually and for your community. If you find philosophy fascinating, but want to make sure that your study of the subject is practical, if you enjoy economic analysis, but want to see how economic laws interact with moral principles, if you are interested in politics, but want to explore how economic and ethical realities constrain our political choices, you should consider the PPE program at Ottawa University.
The Gortney Institute at Ottawa University is the best place in the Midwest for free enterprise education and its contribution to human flourishing, faith and economics in action. We have some great high school student programs like PPE Fest. This is an event where students get to listen to some world-renowned speakers and then participate in competition geared around philosophy, politics, and economics. Our everyday economics program is just a half day on a Saturday, and we will have an integrated discussion about common sense economics. We have a college credit microeconomics course that runs every 8 weeks. Your high school student can earn college credit for the special price of $200. If you know some students interested in programs like these, contact Peter, Justin, or Russ today.
Okay, so we're back talking about AI manifesting itself into something physical that is hopefully something useful. I can't help but think we've been dabbling with this with using our phone to open up our garage door, and it can, take a picture and cameras, and you can start your microwave from your phone, right? So we're incorporating the internet, and now with AI, maybe we can just speak to it and have it do it, and now we've got this robot in there. Well, because of the connectivity with the internet, I couldn't help but think of some nefarious person out there when these Neos are in every household in the United States, or in 80% of the households, somehow being able to flip a switch and turn them all into a unified army and go on a killing spree, basically corrupt the programming or whatever, send some sort of code down.
I will say, they actually wouldn't even need to flip a switch. They would just need to take advantage of existing software, because if my understanding of the videos is correct, people can, via smartphone, guide what it does, right? Mm-hmm. And so if someone can hijack that so that it's not your smartphone, but their smartphone that's doing it, yeah, I mean, like it's not only can they flip a switch, they could actually just use the existing switch that's there, so. But
I'm talking about them all acting in a unified way, right? So that they like kill everybody in the household first, and then they move outside to.
Yeah, it could be any of those things,
get,
right?
Whatever, some sort of unified. I'm picturing the Star Wars episode with, or the white armored,
the
stormtroopers, like those. All of a sudden, there's Neos marching down the road, looking to overtake everything in their path. So, yeah, a little scary on that front for sure. And so, my non-technical brain in this world would be, can they be independent of the internet to like guard against that? Like you have this, intranet or something in your household that the programming is completely offline so that it knows how to fold your laundry and clean your toilet, and everything is localized to your household. That might make me feel a little better about this upcoming purchase. But all right, what do you got, Justin?
So I want to talk about 3 different things I saw and how they kind of relate together. The first is that there was an article in April of 2024 about a New York City chicken restaurant that employed cashiers via Zoom who were actually working in the Philippines. And these cashiers were being paid $3.70 an hour, where the minimum wage in New York is like $16 an hour, right? The second thing I saw, or the second thing I'll bring up too, is if anybody's seen the documentaries about the Elizabeth Holmes, what was her company's name? I can't remember. She was the one who had the
Theranos.
Theranos, right? Yeah. And Theranos was supposed to be this amazing tech where it would draw your blood at home. Everybody would have these machines that did it. And she was always showing that these machines worked by actually doing something different, right? And just hoping that the tech would get there. So the demonstrations of the Theranos product were actually using different centrifuges than the one that she says was being used for it, because they could never get the actual tech to work.
And she's probably still sitting in jail, I think.
I don't know. Yeah. And the third was a video I saw yesterday, which showed these new Neo robots. And one of the things you can do with them is not just control them via your phone, but you can put on a VR headset and arms and stuff and have the robot do exactly what you are doing. Right.
Oh my.
So if you want to walk around and do your dishes at home while you are on vacation in Des Moines or whatever, you could put on your VR headset and do this. And the video shows these 2 people right next to each other, not these 2 people, a guy and the robot, just to show how low the latency is. That is, how quickly the robot responds doing the exact same thing that you're doing while you do it, right?
Wow.
And the tweet that really cracked me up, and I think I sent this to Peter, is somebody saying, I am now 99% convinced that these robots were designed to be teleoperated by Filipino children. That is, that while people will say that, oh, look, our robots can, if you teach it how to empty the dishwasher, it can empty the dishwasher. Well, maybe the robots are so cheap at $20,000 a year, because what they're actually doing is paying people $4 an hour to teach these children how to unload your dishwasher, where there's just a bunch of kids in the Philippines in warehouses wearing VR gear doing household tasks that are being completed by these Neo robots in our houses.
Wow, we got a movie plot there for sure.
Yeah, and so in some sense, the difficulty is like you would never exactly know, right? Like there's this. I mean, maybe someone would figure it out, but there's for the average consumer, definitely an asymmetry of information where like what you're gonna like crack open the hardware of this robot, plug it into a computer to examine the code and find this all out. It's like,
yeah,
I guess maybe if the one way you could figure it out is if it didn't come preloaded with internet, right? And then you disconnect the Wi-Fi and see if it can still work. Yeah, but my guess is it is preloaded with internet, by the way. I would be surprised if there wasn't basically like your cell phone, just like which that's actually kind of an interesting thought. But anyways, yeah, I agree with Justin, but that this, like, the question of, like, is this real? And, like, if it operated, how would we know? That actually brought up a second concern for some people, which is that, like, okay, if we have a big problem with paying human beings who can operate this thing, like minimum wage from other countries, to operate it remotely, why is it okay to pay the robot, which apparently has an indifferentiable amount of talent, or not the talent, intelligence, to these human beings who are operating the robot, $0 to do the task? And to put that a little bit more, bluntly, is like, is it ethical to have these robot servants, right? And, a few years ago, there was a really popular video game that came out called Detroit Become Human, which was about this plot, basically about, you play as one of these robots who is treated very poorly by the owner, and like the robots gain this sentience, and they try to basically argue for civil rights. I don't think AI is there yet, but some people, by the way, argue it is, right? Some people, argue that, like, Google's AIs are already strong enough that we should treat them like people. Some people are concerned. I don't think that's the case. I actually don't think it's ever the case that robots can achieve sentience, or that we would ever know if they did at the very least, because of some of the things we talked about on previous podcasts, like the Theory of Minds podcast we had a 3-part series on. And I think that covers that pretty well. But still, like, this concern remains, is like, well, how smart can these robots appear to be before we start to get concerned about whether it's ethical to, like, have these robot servants? Is there a point, Justin, Russ, I'm curious what you think, that there are a lot of people who are saying, like, oh, like, this isn't okay. Like, we're just reinventing indentured servitude here.
Well, I guess I lean back to my religion and faith that my answer would be no. But I can easily see how people who humanize animals and other things, I mean, they're very willing to associate that with other things in nature, plants, trees, that to go move on to a robot is an easy move for some people.
Yeah, especially when the robot's obviously, at least you can talk to it, right?
Yeah,
like,
it's
you can
even
talk
more
to it,
than a plant or a dog, right? Or, whatever, more so than some of the animals.
Which, by the way, there is a second issue I'm going to force Justin to deal with too, which is that there already have been reports about people developing relationships with artificial intelligences. That becomes so much more of a clear problem when this is a physical entity that you are speaking to, and you throw in the possibility of, like, virtual reality and how, like, you can make things appear to be visually different. Are we, like, that far from people developing, we'll say, unnatural, and I don't mean that in an explicit way, I just mean in general, unnatural relationships, that is replacing human relationships with essentially relationships with, like, large, big groups of coding, is different than someone, a materialist out there is going to be like, that humans are just large pieces of coding. No, they're not. Again, go back to, previous podcasts, we've discussed this, but I don't know. I just threw a lot at you, Justin, but do you have any thoughts?
Yeah, a bunch. So I think that I don't think there's anything you said that I think is wrong. We know from 100 years of doing philosophy of mind about how to tell whether or not another creature or AI is sentient. That is, whether or not they have subjectivity, which means whether or not it is like something to be them. That's the big question. The first answer that we got in philosophy of mind is from Alan Turing. This is the Turing test. If it acts like a human, and if you can't tell a difference, then we ought to say that it is conscious, or that it is thinking. He used thinking rather than consciousness. And there are a bunch of logical reasons why that's not a sufficient answer. You can simulate thinking, where somebody has a set of rules that they follow, where if you get instructions in Chinese and you just follow these rules, you output something that's indistinguishable from a Chinese speaker, and yet you do not understand Chinese. So the lesson there is that merely simulating understanding is not the same thing as understanding. And we can say something much the same about consciousness in general, that simulating consciousness is a different thing than actually having consciousness, right?
Yeah, if your parrot says, "I think, therefore I am," it has not actually grasped Aristotle or anything like that, right?
Yeah. The problem is, even though it's not sufficient, that is the only test we have. So we haven't gone like, oh, that's not, since that test doesn't work, let's use this better test. We seem to have stumbled into, not only does this test not work, but it does seem like that's the best test we have. And if it doesn't work, then we also seem to face that problem with other human beings too. We just say, oh, well, other human beings seem enough like us that we can assume that what's going on in me is also going on in somebody else. And that's a slightly bigger leap from another human being to an AI, right? In a world where we increasingly are dealing with other human beings through a screen and mediated via tech, that leap becomes a lot smaller. Yeah. And so I think that's the reason that, to answer the second part of Peter's question, I think it sets people up. So there's a difference between something being the same, and that's why we can't tell the difference between two things, and two things being categorically different, but almost indistinguishable. And I think that with AI, we are getting very close to the second case, where communicating with a human being over the internet is going to become kind of indistinguishable from communicating with an AI over the internet. And the worry, for me, the worry is something like, I think that human consciousness and interest this is kind of related to the Julian Simon view that the biggest resource we have is actual like human beings in time. I think it's actually like human attention, that we can only give so much of our attention. We have a finite amount of it. And I think it sets you up, it sets especially young people up to squander that, essentially throwing it into a pit where the thing that you're paying attention to does not have literal consciousness or attention to pay back to you. So it's like this really tragic in a way. And I used to watch in one of the podcasts that I listen to, it's a comedy podcast. They used to have this video of this person who fell in love with a carnival ride, like a gigantic carnival. And the joke is, you hear the person talk about the carnival ride and it's like, I'm in love with his gimbals and the way he moves. And it's like, it's obviously, you go like, oh, this is obviously an insane person, right?
Yeah,
or something's gone wrong here.
Yeah.
But I don't think that's categorically different than falling in love with an AI.
Yeah.
The problem is that it's indistinguishable. Falling in love with an AI is indistinguishable from falling in love with a human being at a certain point when you're dealing with everything mediated via a computer screen.
Yeah, well, I'll attest to the first point of like wasting potential, and like the way that you can know that this is true is like there are already like bots on social media whose programming is to like argue with people. And, we could speculate all day long about what's going on here, but the general consensus is like there are a group of people who understand that like if you convince people to argue, you waste their time, especially if like you're not arguing with another person you can convince, but just like this pre-programmed bot that's just going to like figure out 47 ways to say you're wrong. Well, if you do that and you have a political or religious side or whatever that you're opposed to, or even like a national interest you're opposed to, you could waste collectively a lot of the resources of the other side by making them sit around and argue with somebody whose mind you can never convince, right? And so that's maybe some of these are joke accounts, right? That's one explanation. But like, what's the joke? Well, the joke is like you just wasted like your life, right? And so it's certainly the case that like spending an inordinate amount of time talking to like these bots is a waste of time, because even the people who dislike you know that, right? Even the people who want to waste your time are trying to do it that way. And so it's seemingly self-evident.
Yeah, and so you mentioned like a bot that you can't convince, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that might be a clue that you're dealing with an AI, but you quickly realize it's just as easy to waste your time, since bots can be spun up at random. Instead of one bot that you can't convince, a million bots that you can convince.
Sure,
and you actually think you're racking up wins, but there's nothing on the other end of it, right?
Yeah. No, that's exactly right. So I think ultimately I agree with you. Like, it's a more attractive roller coaster, right? Like that's the problem. It's like it's actually the roller coaster thing is way better. This is like a very C.S. Lewis-esque point, is that like, things that are close to the right thing are actually way more dangerous than things that are far from the right thing. Because like everybody sees the roller coaster thing and they make a TLC show out of it because everybody laughs, right? no one is going to think it's weird to fall in love with a robot who looks like a person and talks like a person and treats you a lot better than a person, right? Especially the closer that robot becomes to appearing undifferentiable from a human being, right? And so that's where I see things getting concerning, especially, you layer this on top of the already existing issues that we're having with relationships between genders right now in the United States, especially in the West more generally. We see more religious and political divides between men and women than really ever in modern history in the United States today. And, these are questions of like deepest values. And so it was always a concern that like one or both sides are just going to secede from their relationship, which is a problem because humanity exists because of male-female relationships that don't disappear. So that was always a concern that someone would secede. Well, it's so much easier to secede when you have what is in your eyes a perfect substitute, right? So if you secede in a if the roller coaster is your only option, maybe you're going to be like, all right, I'm not going to secede for that reason. But if the other option is like looks exactly the same as what you're leaving, you're more likely to leave. And that's an issue. I mean, at the end of the day, if one of our biggest issues is this gender relations and sort of like a societal norming process happening to people of like making commitments with other people and having long-term goals and establishing like something in the future, the more this becomes available and common, the less incentive there is to go through that social norming process. And I think that makes people insane. And they won't even see it happening. I'm not saying that like, the robots are going to convince people to go insane. I'm saying if you don't establish those natural social relationships, but instead you establish relationships with a thing that caters to you by its very nature, there's no society that operates like that. Like that just won't work.
Yeah, I actually think we're kind of seeing a big... This is starting to bubble up. There's a lot of people, if you look up like AI and schizophrenia, a lot of people who are claiming to make like really big discoveries in logic and mathematics and stuff. And it's because they are talking with an AI and, and they think, and the AI is programmed, as you noted, to keep them talking, but also, these models are programmed or on a set of texts that they have to look at. And so they're just trying to give predictively what the best next letter is in every, like that's literally what they do. And so there's a sense in which, they will of course hallucinate results. If you are even borderline susceptible to like anything even close to schizophrenia, this is like a really, it's not good to be in a dialogue or to hand part of your cognitive roadmap to something that just isn't quite a human mind.
Yeah, if AI is a human, it's an agreeable enabler, right? Like that. At the end of the day, that's what. So it's like if you say, "Hey, is this right?" You're very likely to get back yes, even if it's wrong, because the AI kind of like picks up on like, "Oh, this person is suggesting something is true." And I've been programmed to be kind and agreeable, and so let me argue for why this is true. Now, that's not always the case. Sometimes AIs do disagree, but I mean, to throw out an example, and we're getting towards the end here, but I was having an AI analyze like my health insurance policy options the other day because the health insurance policy options have changed. And it did some good work. Like it pointed out like some benefits of one of the policies that I didn't consider. It gave like break-even equations, which were actually pretty good to make some decisions. But a weird thing started to happen where like at first it gave me the options where like I have two options. I said at first it gave me the acceptable frame for option 1 and the acceptable frame for option 2 in terms of like number of doctor's visits. So it's like this is the range where this option is better. But then it started to like I started to give it different scenarios. And the first scenarios I gave it were pretty favorable to option 2, and I knew that, but I was just trying to figure out like what the breaking point becomes, that sort of thing. But I noticed as we went on, because I sort of preloaded it with option 2 favorability, kind of accidentally, I didn't mean to. It's just like the first scenarios I gave, I wanted to give more tend towards option 2, and then I wanted to do the opposite. But it started to like double down. It started to be like an insurance salesperson for option 2. Like it was saying things like, option 1 is better on paper, but if you want the illusion of being better, you go with option 1. But the concrete real life difference is option 2. Go with option 2. Like very like blunt, explicit, like I guess this is better, but really this one's always. And then like at the very end, the thing that alarmed me the most was I started asking affirmative questions on this. And finally, I say, okay, well, give me this one breakdown. It says option 1, $8,000 of cost. Option 2, $12,000 of cost. Definitely go with option 2. It's better. And I'm like, wait a second. I'd rather pay $8,000 than $12,000, right? It's like, oh yeah, sorry, I was getting overzealous about option 2. It's like, oh no, like you got it so overzealous that you didn't know that paying $4,000 more is worse, right? That's a pretty fundamental mistake. And so this is the issue on my view with AI is, as you pointed out, it's good enough at talking about like physics and science and math that like it gives this illusion of like expertise. But also it's like stupid enough that it makes fairly basic arithmetic errors still. And so, yeah, this could very easily fuel like grand conspiracy theories, personal paranoia, that sort of thing, because it can find like it's really good at finding patterns. And so if you are trying to find patterns around you that reinforce your paranoia, it's going to be able to find them too, because it's better at finding patterns than you are. But it's stupid at applying the patterns, right? Like this is the problem is like, it's made to find patterns. And so it has the same problem actually as like a schizophrenic person is like it finds too many patterns.
Yeah, it finds patterns that aren't there, right? Yeah, which is, as you noted, a symptom of schizophrenia.
Yeah, I can't remember who, it might have been Einstein, but I don't think it was. That it is, I think, a famous quote that like the human brain is really good at finding patterns and really bad at finding non-patterns. And like the large language models are based on like human like praxis, and so we'd actually expect the large language model to be even worse at seeing non-patterns. So I think we've exhausted podcast for today, but my general view is like this is a good thing, kind of similar to you up front. I like my robots doing chores, not being in charge of medical decisions for like large groups of patients, right? Like I don't want AI to sit on the board of a hospital. I want AI to fold laundry. And I see the robot as being closer to the folding laundry. There's attendant risks, of course, and there's the socialization problems we talked about. But those problems are coming more from the software language aspect than like the physical moving around aspect anyways. And so I don't see this development as particularly leaning into the downsides of AI as opposed to leaning into the upsides of just like general automation. But any last words, Justin?
Yeah, I guess my one thing is the one thing that makes this one weirder for me is like I agree with you on the automation, and I want AI to do that kind of stuff. But the fact that they have to make it so humanoid, I guess, gives me pause too. Like, yeah, I agree with you and that quote that you mentioned about things being closer, being worse. Like we should want these to be easily differentiable from humans,
like the maid from the Jetsons. She's rolling around on that big singular wheel. She doesn't have legs, right? Her hands are claws. Her eyes are red. Yeah, we should have ugly, scary looking robots. I actually agree with that 100%. Yeah. All right. Well, listeners, thanks for joining us today. This has been a production of the Gortney Institute, the Faith and Economics podcast. Be sure to give us a good rating and follow us on the different podcasting platforms so that way you don't miss any episodes. Other than that, be fruitful and multiply. Thanks.